Hey, what's up, everyone? I messed up my own intro. Let's try this again, shall we? Hey, what's up, everyone, and how are you this afternoon? Alrighty then. Today, we're going to rank all 25 contestants from Total Drama Island Action World Tour and half of the All-Stars cast. I tried to make this list from like half biased, so like it's got like part of my opinion in it, but for the most part, I do try to keep to my normal, spiel. The biggest factors here are how well the character is written, how well they played the game, how enjoyable it was to watch them on screen, and so on and so forth. Just overall, things that make them a better character. With all the criteria and all of the malarkey out of the way, let's just jump right into the list. At number 25, and this is probably where some of you are even wondering where there's a 25th person, because you might have forgotten about this character, Blaney. Now, I was heads or tails on whether to even include Blaney, as she's the only member of the cast who, she's an adult for one, so she's the only member of the cast who's not a teenager. Also, her being brought into the cast midway through didn't really help. It really shouldn't surprise anybody that she's down this far on the list, because her character was genuinely made to be unlikable. It was pretty clear that her elimination was, it was gonna happen sooner rather than later. And even her time on the Aftermath show was just less likable than it was, with Bridget around. So when you bring all this together, Plainly is by far the worst member of the Total Drama original cast. And it's interesting, somebody made a point one time, you don't introduce a new character to a season, without having them go far. First of all, when you introduce a new cast, that's all new characters. And secondly, Blaney is a perfect example of not every new member should go far. Snippet of information out there, and move on to number 24, which is unsurprisingly Sadie from Total Drama Island. Now, this is another character who seems to be made for the explicit fact of just being annoying. Her entire time on the island can kind of be described in pretty simply as drug out. She had the opportunity to stay longer than Katie. They weren't eliminated together, and it's not like she was the very next elimination. It really gave her the opportunity for some character growth, to move into an independent person. Instead, as long as Sadie's around, the only thing that we got was a lackluster fear of a bad hair day and a forgettable, if you can even call it, a rivalry with Courtney, which of course ended with Courtney out on top and Sadie going home. But I mean, yeah, overall this character was just, in my opinion, she went a little bit further in the game than she really needed to. Or really anybody even wanted her to, except maybe Katie. But it is what it is. At most, I think, and believe it or not, I believe that there is no such thing as a terrible, unredeemable character. It's just they need to be written the right way. Sadie is a perfect example of she had ample opportunity to be written in a more beneficial way. And honestly, I thought she was kind of bad with Katie around. Then she just became invisible when Katie left. So yeah, that is why Sadie is number 24. But if you thought that Katie was going to be much higher on the list, then you are sadly mistaken, because she is number 23. Now, the only reason that she ranks slightly higher than Sadie is because she was an early boot, which kind of felt right. Sadie's a little bit lower down because it felt like her character was really dragged out. Like, this character did not need to make it as many episodes further in the game than she did. You really could have eliminated her alongside Katie. But you know, stuff happens. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna take this phone call because it might be important. Was not important. It was just my brother letting me know that he was on his way over here, which I guess you guys didn't really need to know that, but now you do. Anyway, getting back to Katie and why she is a little bit better than Sadie. The fact that, you know, Katie wasn't without potential either. You know, neither one of them really are. It kind of comes down to, like, they just didn't put the time or effort into developing the characters, and maybe that was just by design. Either way, there was opportunity to develop the characters, just not anything. And it's not like the characters did nothing, it's just the things that they did were more annoying than they were actually beneficial. For instance, the whole plot point they have with the, you know, are they aren't they friendship, yeah, it just doesn't really do much. Nobody really cared if they were, you know, gonna be friends or not in the end. And as for, you know, anything else related to these characters, I will say that I do like the character designs of Katie and Sadie, because I don't know, I mean, Katie has the darker skin thing, which I feel like, because she's not, you know, black or white really, like, they could have touched up on, you know, maybe she had half and half parents, maybe she's Latino. I can't really tell by her skin tone, and we don't really know much about her backstory either. As for Sadie, she appears to be Asian American, which you know, other than MK, there really hasn't been any, like, Asian American characters in the series. So, I just kind of feel like it was a missed opportunity. Oh, well, I guess the sisters from the Redonkulus race, but I don't know. I think they actually are Japanese. I don't know if they live in America or not. Moving on though, because this is not about the sisters. We're gonna move into Ezekiel, and full disclosure, I am sorry for how long this is gonna be, because it really didn't need to be this long, but I have a lot to say about this. This character just keeps getting worse with every appearance in the series. So, despite only appearing and competing at least in 2 seasons, Ezekiel makes an appearance in a whopping 5 seasons before they finally let Old Yeller rest. Ezekiel was an obvious first boot, having been raised by creepy prairie people and seemingly having like little intelligence besides homeschooling. Despite this, I don't really think the guy needed to go home as soon as he did. Misogynistic comment aside, I could have seen Katie or Sadie going earlier. Not that this guy was gonna go far in the game by any means, but I mean, at least he didn't slow the team down or anything during the challenge. It was just a comment he made. But it wasn't really a surprise to see him go packing, and it's not like I really got emotional. It was just, yeah. Anyway, season 2, we really only seen Zeke in the aftermath, and he was just kind of background noise. He didn't really have much to say. I think he only had one speaking line in all of season 2. So again, you could argue that he kind of got worse there, and the fact that he just didn't do anything. But then you come to World Tour, and Ezekiel had actually won me over a little bit just at the start of World Tour, trying to make amends, because he tried to start making amends with the girls on the island as far back as the extra episode of Total Drama Island, which led up to Total Drama Action. However, they just didn't really do anything about it. They decided to flush away like any chance of development this guy had, and trade for a running joke, seeing Zeke get eliminated again after he accidentally had his stick eaten by an alligator. Following this elimination, it just got worse. If it was just this, I would have considered World Tour a high point for Zeke. It wasn't, it wouldn't have been a great point by any means, but at least it wasn't like what came afterwards. After he was eliminated, he just began to spiral into madness. He stowed away into the cargo area of the plane. He kind of seemed to adapt to, being a walking, talking rat of some sort. I don't really know. His skin mutated to like a green color, and his actions became more like a feral animal than an actual person. And at the end of the season, you just kind of seemingly watch this guy die with the money in his hands after trying to take it from Heather or Alejandro, depending on which version you watched. That's not the case though, because this is only the 3rd season. After replacing the old cast with a new set, you figured that you would not see any of the old cast again, especially Zeke, but he still managed to appear, and somehow managed to survive his ordeal with the volcano. He ends up on the island again, and the team is tasked away with sealing up the cave he's in. Again, this guy manages to avoid being forgotten in season 5, where people are just kind of tricked into thinking that he's getting a 3rd shot at the million, only to reveal that it was a joke, and that was not actually what was happening. But this would still see him appear on the island every once in a while, living amongst the animals, and with the whole plot point with Rose and Maria, it was all really weird. This character it went from poor guy to what even is this thing. Thankfully, Total Drama All-Stars would be the last season that Zeke appeared. At the end, At the end of this character, it's really just described as derailed. I can honestly say that this character is the most derailed, like badly written character in total drama. This is like if Jump the Shark was a character, Ezekiel is that character. And sorry for focusing on the first boot in 2 seasons for so long. But honestly, like this guy, ugh. We're gonna move on. So we're gonna move into number 21, which is Beth. And some of you might not think that Beth deserves to be down this low, but I just have a little less to say about Beth. She isn't low on the list because she's a bad character by any means. It's just that she's a bit of a boring one, in my humble opinion, or not so humble, I guess. Beth peaked in season 1 when she turned on Heather. It's the most iconic scene, well, maybe not the most iconic, but one of the most iconic scenes in season 1. And it really showed that Beth could, stand on her own 2 feet as a character. However, after being brought back for season 2, it kind of seemed a bit like a mistake. With the last being effectively cut, it just I don't know. It seemed like the cast, that was a typo, because I'm trying to follow a script more. That way it's not so convoluted and ranting. The cast being effectively cut in half, that makes a lot more sense. It just seemed like a lot more characters could have used a second chance better. But still, given the high note that Beth left on, in season 1, I still kinda, it's not that I didn't want to see this character in this season. She kinda like went a little bit too far in my opinion. Many people, including myself, think that this was a bit of a mistake, not because she won and not Duncan, but rather I think both the finalists were incorrect. There were characters that far deserved the spots there better, which we'll get into later. But the reason I didn't think that Beth deserved to be a finalist is because she didn't really do much of consequence during her run on either season, really. She talked about her boyfriend a lot, which, let's be honest, none of us really thought she had. And the reveal at the end, was kind of cool that she actually did have one, but it felt a little out of place that she won the series, given that she did so little to actually contribute. And Lindsay went through so much character development. So I don't know. It's just I find the character a little bit lacking and not so much bad. I'm gonna grab a drink real quick. Not really walking away, just I have to open up my 2-liter. So moving on to number 20, we have a character that I've noticed is either really high up on people's list or really low down. I don't often see this character as a mid. Sierra is a character that is pretty hit or miss, to be quite honest. Depending on who you are and what you value in the character, I guess. Given where she's placing on my list, you can probably guess, which group I'm in. This is another character that I actually really think that they peaked in their debut season. The will they won't they dynamic between her and Cody was actually pretty engaging. Sometimes it gets a little annoying to watch the will they won't they, but I don't know. This was one of the few that I was like actually invested in. You know, will they get together? Won't they? Because Cody was having conflicted feelings, and there was nothing that was stopping Sierra from finding another guy that she liked on the show. Heck, they could have made her start romantically pursuing Chris. But overall, Sierra was a little bit odd, but actually somewhat likable. I personally felt like she made it a little bit further than she should have in the game. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, with the, whole you don't introduce new characters without like having them go far in the game. This is a character like I would disagree with. I think that this character should have went a little bit earlier. Now I'm not saying a great deal earlier, but I mean if she would have, went out final 10, final 9, I'd have been cool. The fact that she made it all the way to the final 4 though, it was just, I don't know, it was too much Sierra. But she was a late addition to the cast, and this is a character that they actually wanted to acclimate into being a member of the cast, unlike Blaney, who it was very clear she was just a throwaway character. But I kind of like let it go because they needed some time to develop her character. So it's not like her making it that far in the game was completely unwarranted. However, I also take into like All Stars, and if it would have just been Total Drama World Tour, she would have been higher up on the list, but All Stars did nobody favors. It really put into perspective like what is wrong with this character for me. And not only did it put it in perspective, it actually really like highlighted it. Getting a season with Sierra and not like Cody, it could have been interesting if they played it right. They could have played her more into like the Total Drama fan knowledge, having her like, know more about the games, or having random like facts to throw at people, or even explore new friendship dynamics. Just done something. Instead, what we got forced to watch was Sierra slowly go crazy because she didn't have Cody, and she forced Cameron to take on the role of makeshift Cody, which was really weird and also like why. And this switched Sierra from kind of odd to really creepy and possessive, really. It just highlighted how much like codependency can harm somebody. The only like big saving grace that I can say is what she did one of the best songs in Total Drama World Tour. The one where she was singing about Cody breaking her heart. I can't remember what it's called, but that's one of the few Total Drama World Tour songs that like it just never leaves my head. Oh, that one and the keep it down so I can win the loot. Try, I will, but I still got a fart. No, 2. Anyway, moving on. Trent is number 19, and this is another example of a character that peaked in their first season, which might be why they started doing, like, for a minute there anyway. I guess not really, now that I think about it. They only did it with one cast. Either way, it's just, I don't know. Multiple seasons worth of a character can do some good and many others bad. This is just a good, like, a sign to leave a good thing alone, maybe. The romance between Trent and Gwen felt so authentic and cool, and it was so much more meaningful than like Gwen and Duncan. Trent may have been a little boring in his season, I'll admit, but in a weird way, that's also kind of what made him cool. He wasn't some over-the-top stereotype. He was just some dude with a guitar, and it made him feel really authentic. One of my favorite scenes in the series is watching Trent carry the rock for Gwen in the finale. I felt like it was really metaphorical with Trent saying that he would carry any burden that she threw at him, and it really got me in the feels. And I might be reading too much into it, but that's how I perceived it. However, then we come to season 2, Total Drama Action, which, with Trent and Gwen both returning, I'm sure many people, including myself, were hoping that we'd actually get to see the on-screen relationship play out in a more official manner. But the writers really had other plans. They wanted to get Gwen and Duncan together. And so Trent was written to be very obsessive in this season, not only with Gwen, but strangely also with the number 9, a trait that Trent had never really been shown to have at all in season 1. And with only a handful of episodes, it didn't take much for Trent to go from, the cool guy that we once knew to just gone. Completely ruined, to ensure that fans wouldn't care about his and Gwen's breakup, since the writers were planning on doing something else with Gwen. Trent really didn't return in the series as a contestant ever again, although they did write some closure in the Total Drama Aftermath series. Gwen and Trent seemingly stayed broken up, although they might get back together post All-Stars if you want to headcanon. Or, if you do Total Drama Reunion, there's a good chance that they got back together. But I'm going to stop myself from getting into Total Drama Reunion and just move right into number 18, which is Bridget. We have another character that got derailed and just completely screwed after the first season that they appeared in. I always liked Bridget in Total Drama Island. She was always chill and seemed like the neutral, true neutral kind of girl. She seemed like the type who could party with the bros or hang with the girls and fit into really any crowd. She also was kind of depicted liking animals, and her romance with Jeff was really sweet. It may not have been the best romance on the series, and it certainly wasn't the most engaging in the season, but it still was actually really cool to watch, and it really helped me like Bridget all the more just because I like Jeff. I also felt like she left at an appropriate time. She didn't go too far in the game, and she didn't go too tripped over my words. She didn't go home too early. She made it right where she needed to. Season 1 Bridget is actually worthy of top tier rankings. But then why is she so low on the list, you may ask? Well, season 2 introduced Bridget and Jeff again as a strong ongoing couple. That a little too strong, actually. The problem was that these two were literally non-stop sucking face until they were eliminated together as the very first eliminations. And it already made a very small cast even smaller for very little reason. They still weren't too bad in the Aftermath series. So she didn't fall too far down until the mess in season 3. Despite being represented as such a strong couple in the first 2 seasons, World Tour made the brave decision to have Bridget come back without Jeff, which was promising considering what happened in season 2, but it turns out that this may not have been as good as they seemed on the surface. Alejandra made quick work of team victory by wooing Bridget and Lashana both in order to eliminate them. And what really dropped Bridget for me was that she tried to cheat on Jeff, seemingly out of nowhere, and this caused her to end up making out with a pole instead. Things were tense between her and Jeff in the after show, after that until Bridget sung an apology song, which led to Jeff forgiving her, but the whole experience just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. She and Jeff are still canonically a couple as far as their redonkulous race, although Jeff chose to race with Brody instead, and I don't know. And maybe it's because they realized that they made a mistake with, Bridget in season 3, or maybe it was just they really wanted to highlight like the bro aspect of this character. So we're going to move on to number 17, which is a character that despite I don't have much to say about, they do rank up this high, and that is Eva. Eva is a major case of just wasted potential. Some may wondering how a character like this even made it this high, but from a writing standpoint, I really liked this character. I really think that she could have returned with some potential since they brought her back. They could have used her like using anger management as a plot, and they had plenty of unexplored relationships that they just didn't use. They could have delved deeper into like why Eva targeted Bridget specifically upon her return and not any other member of her team. And given the nature of Bridget's character, having her help Eva find some sort of inner peace would have been nice as well. Instead, we never really got to see Eva's strength in play, which is a shame. I would have loved to see her as a power player in the game. She also ranked higher because her character wasn't derailed completely. It stayed stagnant because, well, she was only in one season. I would like to see Eva return for something like the Redonkulous race or something, but as of right now, Eva just doesn't have much standing. I also kind of like the character design, to be quite honest, so there. Moving on to number 16, we have Cody, the Codester, the Codemeister. Honestly speaking, there isn't much to say about Cody. Besides being a wimp that had a crush on Gwen, Cody didn't really offer much to Total Drama Island. He did help Gwen pursue Trent after he was rejected, but otherwise he didn't really do anything in Total Drama Island, besides get blown up by a trash bomb. Cody returned for Total Drama World Tour, and despite not doing much again, he did it much better this time. He punched Duncan, which was one of my favorite Cody moments in the series, and also one of my favorite Total Drama World Tour moments. And the only thing that I regret was that Harold never got his in the end, but we'll get to that later. The dynamic between him and Sierra was fresh, and at some point, like, I even found myself rooting for the guy to win. Him making it to the final 3 was kind of cool too. It was unexpected and also didn't feel completely undeserved. Had Cody done a little bit more in the series, or maybe had an appearance in action so they could flesh out like a non-romantic aspect of his character more, he could have easily been ranked higher on the list. But as it stands, the Codemeister is number 16. And now we're going to move into number 15, which is Izzy. Now, Izzy is a strange character that definitely catches the eye. Her character alone is eye-catching, but it's actually her actions that define this character. Izzy is wonderfully unpredictable, so you never really know what's going to come at you next with her. She's also consistently written, never really taking the game serious, and just kind of goofing off for 3 seasons straight. She also has some of the most hilarious plot points in the series, like dating drama with a giant anatomical monster, being hunted by the government, having multiple different names that she goes by. And it also helps that she dated fan favorite character Owen, which is just one of my personal favorite, relationships in the series. Sometimes Izzy can feel a little forced with how much that she returns to the game, but her zany personality really makes up for all of that. And it kind of helps to have a comedy relief character around. I really didn't want to talk about Total Drama Rama, and I promise you that this is the only time that I'm going to mention it in this video. Izzy's character is actually, scratch that. It's going to get mentioned one other time, but I promise they're going to be very, very short. Izzy is one of the better characters in Total Dramarama. The series, Total Dramarama, by all means, is crap. It is the fart fairy in a series. But Izzy, being Izzy, is actually, it really fits with Total Dramarama, so there. There's a positive thing to say about Total Dramarama. Not much, but there. We're going to move into Gwen, and oh, how the mighty can fall. Gwen was one of my personal favorites in Season 1, and watching her make it all the way to the finale was amazing. Her romance with Trent was engaging, it was amazing, and her friendships felt really genuine and fleshed out. Her character design was stellar, and everything about this character just felt right in Total Drama Island, which I'm going to get into that Total Dramarama thing real quick. This is the other character I wanted to touch up on the Total Dramarama thing. Gwen had one of the best character redesigns in Total Dramarama, although I do have a conspiracy theory about that, but we'll get into that in another video. Done with Total Dramarama now. Cross my heart, hope to die. Where was I? Oh yes. Going into Total Drama Action though, Gwen's character really declined with her and Trent's breakup, and she left pretty quickly as a shell of what she once was in Total Drama Action. Total Drama World Tour saw her character climb back up slightly. However, when they introduced the love triangle with Duncan and Courtney, it was honestly a bad idea, as it wasn't nearly enough to pick back up on the level she was during Total Drama Island. And then in All-Stars, All-Stars manages to destroy almost every character on its roster, and Gwen was no exception. After all of the turmoil with Trent to get her with Duncan, Gwen realizes it's not all that it's cracked out to be and breaks up with him to try to fix things with Courtney and save her friendship. And it would have been a nice end of the character, showing that not every character has to end up in a happy relationship by the end. But I guess the writers thought that the writers thought on a different yeah, the writers thought differently. In the end, Courtney and her were still bitter at one another. Gwen leaves, a character who at one point was in a golden relationship with a lot of friends, only to now be alone with little reasoning other than maybe the show trying to put way too much emphasis on the drama aspect of Total Drama. You guys might disagree with Gwen being so low, but this is counting everything: Island, Action, World Tour, and All-Stars. And if this was just an Island ranking, Gwen would probably be #1 character, realistically speaking. But this is not. It's all of those, and so Gwen is only able to make it to number 14. Moving into number 13, we have Lindsay. And Lindsay is a character who could have been so much higher on the list if they didn't screw her every single turn that they possibly could. Hashtag justice for Lindsay. During Total Drama Island, Lindsay is manipulated by Heather alongside Beth until her elimination, which is crap in of itself, because the wording of the challenge, it was just, not so clever writing. Saw Lindsay get eliminated after coming second in a race of, I think that there were 7 cast members left at the time, if I'm remembering correctly. Either way, out of everybody that was, quote unquote in the race, she was eliminated for coming in second. The only good thing about this elimination was Lindsay cussing Heather out and wishing the others luck before she departed. And that's honestly not much of a saving grace, but it's still one of the most iconic scenes in Season 1. Season 2 saw her grow so much more. She became a real threat in challenges, and she seemed a lot smarter. She took charge of her team and really played an A-plus performance. She deserved to win this season, actually, because she grew more than anybody. But sadly, it wasn't meant to be, as all of her growth just seemed to go away in an instant when she accidentally votes herself instead of Duncan. Now, if you wanted a twist elimination where Lindsay wasn't paying attention, if you actually pay attention to the like little pad thing that they're voting on, Beth was right above Lindsay and Duncan was right below, if I'm remembering correctly. So they could have easily had Lindsay accidentally vote Beth off, her friend, instead, which still would have allowed Duncan to play and not derailed Lindsay, and also given Lindsay a more like legitimate reason to fight harder in the game. But it didn't happen. And when Lindsay came back for World Tour, we all had high hopes for Admiral Lindsay, her hotness, but Lindsay just kind of seemed to regress. Whereas she was no longer reliant on anybody like she was in Total Drama Island, she also seemed to lose like all of the independence and overall intelligence that she seemed to get in Total Drama Action. She even forgot who Tyler was, which is actually like a downgrade in her intelligence. It made a little bit of sense for her to like not get it right with Tyler not being there, but seeing him face to face and not remembering who he is, that's a whole different story entirely. Her elimination in this season was probably the fairest that it's ever been, but let's be honest, it wasn't fair. And then of course All Stars came out and Lindsay's intelligence just kind of hit rock bottom. She was the very first elimination of the season, and all of us were wondering what happened to the strong-willed, player we seen in Season 2. Like every other season, Lindsay was eliminated unfairly, and not even in a remotely clever way this time. There was no bullcrap wording or anything like that. They literally had her draw an X on her own face, because why not? If it would not have been for such poor writing and treatment of this character, she would have been much higher. We are now at the halfway point, or rather just crossed the halfway point, and we are going to get into Owen. Now you guys might be, ready to like throw pitchforks at me in the comment section, but if you'll allow me, please hear me out here. Owen is a case of a character that has been in 4 seasons and not grown a bit as a character. There was never a peak season for Owen because unlike other characters, this guy is always lovably himself in every single appearance he has. His countless romances are just high points in the series, especially the one he has with Noah, and his relationship with Izzy was just really cool. And they weren't really up in your face about this, romance either. It was present, but not really a main plot point. The only reason that Owen didn't get higher on the list is because of the same reasons, though. He doesn't change, so there's no growth or loss. He's just stagnant. He's a stagnant, lovable character, and in a way, I wouldn't have it any other way. We're gonna move on to number 11, which is Lashana. Now, it should come as no surprise that she's affected by the curse of getting worse with every appearance. Total Drama Island, Lashana is easily top 5 for me. Her sassy attitude and her game were on point. The whole romance thing with Harold just made it better. And then of course you've got moments like shoving Harold into the freezer, throwing her off a cliff, and just so many more. Lashana was one of the few characters that could actually get some justice for the audience that they desperately wanted with Heather without actually having her eliminated. Lashana felt real in this season, and she was so likable in in this season. And season 2, she was still pretty likable, but her betraying the trust of everybody seemed really out of character and kind of out of left field for her, and it left a bitter taste in everybody's mouth about the whole thing. Still, Harold defended her, and she was able to earn back a little bit of respect from the rest of the team. But then we come to World Tour, and Lashana broke Harold's heart by pursuing Alejandro, only to be manipulated and ending up as an early boot, which was a sad end for a character in the last season that she ever competed in, because, I mean, it was a very far fall from grace. It wasn't the worst fall I've seen, but it definitely was not the same Lashana that I remember from Total Drama Island. And it would have, I really think that this character deserved a more respectful and conclusive end. But such as it is, we move on to number 10. Now, Duncan is really high up because when I was a kid, I loved this guy. This guy was my number 1 Total Drama pick when I was a kid. I wanted this guy to like win every season. He was just my dude. And I had less interest when he wasn't around. This isn't much, because like at the time that I was kind of fanboying over Duncan. The only 2 seasons were Total Drama Island and Total Drama Action, or at least I think that World Tour was out, but it wasn't premiering on TV at the time where I was, so I only got to watch Island and Action. Although it might have also came out after that, I really don't know. But this is probably when Duncan was at his best anyways. Upon rewatching, when I got older and I wanted to get myself back into the series, Total Drama All-Stars was just now airing, so I took the time to catch back up on everything. And I still like Duncan, but his high points really did mostly take place in Season 1. Duncan's sweet side, at least at this point, was a welcome change of pace from the consistent bad boy thing that we'd been kind of like forced to take down, and it really added a level of complexity to the character. He was also pretty good in challenges, and I remember really liking the hooked hand scene and the horror themed challenges, because Duncan was always really cool in those episodes. Nobody can deny that the love story between him and Courtney was engaging too. He was still enjoyable in Season 2, but his relationship with Courtney became a little bit more rocky. Still, overall, my opinion of him didn't dampen much until World Tour. At first, I was sad to see him as the first boot, which I say that with confliction. Ezekiel was the first elimination, Duncan was the first boot, because Duncan quit the game. Ezekiel was eliminated by his peers. That's the difference there. But I was a little disappointed at first when he was the first boot, but then I wished he had stayed gone when he actually came back. Cheating on Courtney just really soured this character for me for like personal reasons, and I felt like he was too stuck in a relationship aspect of his character at this point, kind of moving away from the independent, just do whatever character that he was once was. And just like that, I made it into All-Stars, and boy was I disappointed. I was happy to see Duncan back. I really was, and I was really hoping that they was going to fix his character a little bit. But this, considering the stunt that he pulled in Season 4, I guess I can't say I was too wrong for thinking this, because that was classic Duncan. But with Courtney and Gwen in the mix, I should have guessed that that was not going to be the case. Not only did they not fix his character, they made his and many others' characters way worse. The relationship drama was complex and unnecessary, and the focus on Duncan's sweet side was just too much. I was already happy to, like, you know, see him, like, there, and then I was even more happy to see him get eliminated, just to see the derailment end. And this is the last appearance that Duncan had in this series, and that is for the best, considering. Now we move into number 9, which is Tyler. Now you might be surprised to see Tyler so high up on the list, but this character was always fun to have on the screen. From mean-worthy faces to being forgotten by his girlfriend, this guy always gave you something to laugh about. His fear of chickens was one of the funniest things in Season 1, and seeing him right away on the boat full of chickens for his elimination was priceless. I actually felt robbed of Tyler in Total Drama Action, but he was mentioned a handful of times throughout. I just felt like he really could have helped fill out the cast more and given like an extra level of like comedy to the season. Season 3 was Tyler's high point, which is, you know, surprising considering a lot of characters did not have high points after their like first appearance. But I really wish he would have went further in this game. World Tour was Tyler's final season, and that itself is kind of a shame because the Redonkulous race really seemed like it was right up his alley, and with them bringing back characters that have already competed before, Tyler just seemed like the guy, the top pick. But maybe if they're making season 2, we could see him on a team, maybe teaming with Eva, or like a new character, or I don't know if there's any. I don't think there's any like really sports oriented characters later on in the series, right off the top of my head. Maybe if he was like racing with Mike specifically as Svetlana. I don't know. Anyway, I just also wanted to make a quick point that it's a little disappointing that he and Lindsay broke up canonically, but it's for the best considering that, you know, he also got fired. Not fired, forgotten. Why did I say fired? Hashtag Tyler for Redonkulous race. Anyway, talking about characters that appeared in the Redonkulous race, we come to Jeff. Now, Jeff is the lovable party guy with a never say die attitude who can't help but make friends with just about everybody. During Total Drama Island, you get to see Jeff bond with Gwen and DJ, ensuring powerful friendships that'll probably last for a lifetime. And Jeff invited Gwen to a party to make her feel more social, and that he agreed to watch Bunny for DJ. Even when he's eliminated all 3 times, Jeff seems unable to phase. It's not just his friendships though, as his romance build up between him and Bridget is actually pretty magical and cute in Total Drama Island. And although he was related to Sucking Face for the first bit of season 2, Jeff returned on the Aftermath show with Bridget, and it wasn't the best, not the worst thing actually. During season 3, Jeff had to forgive Bridget for trying to cheat on him, and didn't appear again until the Redonkulous race, where his partner, Brody, and him were one of my favorite teams of the season. They were an absolute comedy duo, and just straight gold. And whereas Jeff might not be the most interesting character, he is plenty fun to have around, and he's consistently written enough for me to, like, love this guy. Next, we move on to number 7, which is Justin. Now, when you think about characters that got better in the following season, Justin should be one of the first names that comes to your mind. He started off as like an eye candy guy in season 1 and only spoke a handful of lines, one of which being about his pants. This made Justin a rather forgettable character, but also one with a clean slate. And so when Justin came in for season 2, nobody could have really expected how funny this guy could be or how good his villain arc really could be. It was actually one of the most captivating villain arcs in the series, and watching him vie after Courtney was one of the most icing on the cake things that really just showed how much missed potential Eva had with the characters that got booted on really early. Early boots had such a chance to form into characters in season 2, especially because there was just so many filler episodes. You could have had early boots come in and just added a little bit to their character just to fill out the season. Plus, Justin is an example of how well it can work. It never really worked out though. Justin never came back for World Tour or All-Stars, and they essentially replaced him with Alejandro, but it did allow Justin to be one of the few characters to go out on a high note on the series. They didn't derail his character at all. He went through growth and then he got eliminated. It was perfect. And not perfect enough to give him a top 5 spot, but good enough. Moving into number 6, we have Noah. Now, this is one of the few examples of a character getting better every season. Noah goes from a sarcastic know-it-all in Total Drama Island with very little speaking lines to one of Owen's good friends in Total Drama World Tour. They had a decent setup with Noah figuring out Alejandro's secret and had the potential for a really good rivalry there. Sadly, Noah is eliminated before it could happen, and kind of unfairly at that, since he actually did the challenge. Still, it was a vast improvement from Total Drama Island, and then we got the Redonkulous race. This is definitely Noah at his best, with some of his best one-liners and the love story with him and Emma. I'd argue it's not as engaging as Carrie and Devin's love story, but it's still one of the things that I loved about the Redonkulous race. And Noah also hinted to Owen that they were supposed to be participating on another show, which might have been Fresh TV hinting that another TV show might be in the works, or it might just be a regular piece of dialogue considering that they are the reality TV pros. I personally hope that the former is true so we can get to see more of the duo, but that's about all I have to say about Noah. I personally liked this character, and I felt like he just got better with every appearance, which is a good thing. Next, we're going to move into the top 5 characters, which we're going to start off with DJ. DJ is almost impossible to hate. He's a big softy with a love for animals and a good heart. He loves his mom and wants to stand on a moral high ground, and DJ is one of the many who got unfair eliminations in Total Drama Island. But much like Lindsay, this guy can't catch a break. After running away from Heather, screaming in terror, Chris eliminates him before even seeing because he didn't even see the killer. He returned in season 2, where he quit after being practically forced into a backdoor deal with Chef Hatchet, and then realizing that that's not how he wanted to play, he just, quit. And his final appearance was on the Doomed Team Victory, where he gets cursed to hurt animals, which is pretty cruel considering how much the guy actually loves them. And DJ is eventually eliminated while trying to stay in the game after, trying to get eliminated all season. I'm just going to end this with hashtag justice for DJ. Moving on to number 4, we have Alejandro. Now, Alejandro is one of the best villains that the series ever had, and is really only stinted by how late in the series that he came in. His manipulation of the game and the other players is smart, and the bad blood between him and his brother is very relatable. Brothers tend to feel inferior to one another, and it gave Alejandro a sense of complexity that a lot of characters seem to lack in the series. His fixation on Heather is one of his best character traits too. Alejandro likes things to be a little chaotic, as shown not only by the way he wants to play, but also in the girl that he likes. Watching Alejandro take down threat after threat really made you want to watch more to find out who he was targeting next. He really felt like he belonged as part of the cast. Even in Total Drama All-Stars, I liked the guy, and the scheming ways. The faked paralysis was actually one of the most interesting plots in All-Stars for me, and it was one of the few that I really enjoyed to see like how it played out. Overall, Alejandro would have been higher up on the list if he appeared earlier in the series, but number 4 is really not bad. Moving into number 3, we have Courtney. Now, Courtney is an odd example because her character is kind of written all over the place, and yet, strangely, somehow I still like her. Starting off in Season 1, she was an experienced CIT, aka Counselor in Training, which meant she had a pretty good set of skills. Add to that an early reveal at a competitive streak, and it was a formula for one of the best characters in Total Drama Island. Her relationship with Duncan was also pretty catching, and really helped ease her into the queen that she became after. After her unfair elimination, you see more of her aggressive side. She practically hurts Harold for getting, her eliminated, leaves Duncan for dead after hurting his leg, and has complete eyes on the prize money, like, attitude. Courtney returned mid-season 2 to capture the affection of Justin and create some drama around Duncan, and it also added a very good level of complexity with Justin's character that I just really took to. And with Courtney's newfound power, she was a good villain for the series, and it really helped establish that Goody Two-Shoes Courtney is gone. Also with Heather gone, it really added in that whole who's going to be that, place taker. And Courtney was a little bit better written than Season 1 Heather. And Total Drama World Tour, we got to see more of this go for the win attitude, and definitely more of the aggressive side when Duncan cheats on her. This would be the end of great things for Courtney though, as in All-Stars they really derailed her character. Although the new romance with Scott was unique and kind of interesting in its own way, it didn't have the same power as the romance that she had in Total Drama Island. And thanks to a certain hated episode, the any and all growth that this character had in this season literally got flushed away. Courtney was just a complex queen who deserved much better than the lackluster end that she got in the series. The only thing that really didn't put her at number 1 or 2 was that she just kind of suffered from inconsistent writing. Not terribly inconsistent, but I would definitely argue inconsistent. Moving into number 2, we have Harold, and you guys might be surprised that Harold is up this high, but for starters, I did tell you that this was going to have slight bias in it, and Harold is my personal favorite character because of how well written this guy is, and obviously I'm a fan of his mad skills. I almost love every scene that he's in, from the nunyo twirling, the dodgeball save, the love confessions, the beatboxing, the random facts, the Steve guy that he just seems to know that has a lot of different jobs. This list is nearly endless. With Harold and his endless charm, it was just gold. He's a character that is easy to root for, and given his underdog story with Duncan, he was really lovable. Harold never really felt like he went too far in the game either. He always felt like he had the appropriate amount of screen time, except maybe in World Tour. Harold really managed to shine in Total Drama Action alongside Lindsay, and I think that Harold should have been, in the finale instead of Duncan. finally like getting the better of him and showing that the bully doesn't come out on top. Overall, though, Harold was done very well, with his final appearance being on team victories like infamous early boots. The only regret that I have with Harold is they never really properly concluded his story with Duncan or Lashana, but I'll take that over an All-Stars derailment any day. And finally, if you guys did not guess that this character was going to be at number 1, then you probably pieced it together by now. Heather is finally and unsurprisingly at the top. Heather is a character that surprisingly gets better with every season that she's in, save for All-Stars maybe. All-Stars did all the Gen 1 cast bad. So, I mean, you can't really, like, say anything there. In Total Drama Island, Heather is written as a, like, stereotypical mean girl who seems to keep making it further in the game by questionable means and plot armor. That isn't to say that she's a bad character, but watching her, like, make it so far was a little bit frustrating. But it made it all the more worth it watching her get her comeuppance. Whether it was, you know, the ant farm thing from Gwen to getting thrown in the freezer from Lashana, or even getting her head shaved at the end of the series by her own hands. It was just always a delight that wouldn't have been possible if she was more likable and didn't make it as far. Not to mention her shirt getting ripped off and Lindsay cussing her out are two of the most iconic scenes from the first season that I just never forgot. In season 2, it was nice that she wasn't such a big threat, as it really allowed new doors to open, giving Heather some humility with wearing the wig. Her send-off was actually really cool in this season too, and really helped me appreciate the character more. She, you know, she wasn't a terribly, like, evil character, and she wasn't really a good character. There was kind of like a balance here, and it opened up the doors for other people to, like, really play as the main villain and not rely on her to be one so much. Then she returned on Total Drama World Tour with a new hairdo and determination, and she played one of the best games that the series had ever played, seen in this season. The will they, won't they with Alejandra was the best will they, won't they that the series actually has. Like, fight me over it. This is honestly, like, gold. Alejandro was one of the best villains that the series ever had, and with these two kind of coming together, I kind of found myself rooting for these two. And then when they found themselves in the finale, it was really easy and kind of surprising that, you know, you was rooting for Heather. To say that she was great in the season was a massive understatement, and she returned in season 4 just for a quick cameo, where in a very Heather fashion she tried to steal the prize money, and then she came back for All-Stars, and despite All-Stars doing nobody favors, it didn't really do her all that bad, considering. Sure, it didn't do her any favors, but there wasn't any massive derailment of the character either, like there was with some. I also thought the scene with her acting like all nicey nice during the moon episode was kind of funny, and it was one of the scenes that I actually liked in the season, and they were few and far between. Overall, you can't say Heather didn't deserve this spot, and she didn't go through a massive amount of character growth throughout the series. She was the best winner out of all 9 seasons that the series had, just because her character really came full circle. That being said, there you have it. Some of you may agree with this list, and some of you probably will not. However, individuality is kind of what makes us awesome, just like in the series of Total Drama and the characters, if they all had the same attitude and opinion, it wouldn't nearly be as fun, and it'd be much harder to rank. Still, give me your rankings and reasonings as well. New perspectives help keep things interesting. Also, on the subject of rankings, I plan on doing one with the other contestants as well. That being like season 4, season 6, and season 7, then season 8 and 9. So if that's something you're interested in, there you have it. You can look forward to those. As always, thank you so much for watching. I do this for fun, not for fame, but I'm glad if you tuned in and enjoyed it. That's out of the way. So I hope you have an awesome day. Hasta la pasta. See you later. This is A-Bomb Clark here on Total Drama YouTube. Yeah, that was probably the stupidest thing that I actually wrote down for this whole script. So